Welcome to UCF Knightline, your source for UCF sports and former player information. All right, Night Nation, this is Andrew Phegley, and joined in the studio by
Trylko, who is very jealous of you this week. Do you know why?
I don't.
You got to sit down and talk with UCF wide receiver, former wide receiver, J.J. Wharton.
I did.
Who's on the Knightline podcast.
I did.
That's pretty cool.
Awesome.
I like that.
I'm sorry that you couldn't be here, but I think you had other commitments at that time.
And that's pretty cool. It's good to have someone of JJ's renown on the Knightline podcast.
Absolutely. And then next week, I'm just going to tell everybody right now, next week we're going to have Kyle Israel.
You're such a name dropper.
I know. I am. But it gets people to listen. So
well, and it's good that they are listening to the Knightline podcast.
Absolutely. And we want to just, let people know what we have coming up. So later on, we are going to have an interview with Ryan Bass. We talked to him about recruiting, and then later we're going to have the interview with J.J. Wharton.
You've mentioned it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've name-dropped J.J. Wharton twice.
Okay. Maybe a third time before we get to it.
Heck yeah, why not? And then we're going to talk a little bit about basketball. We're going to talk about baseball. We're going to talk about cheerleading. I know. Again,
a little disappointing in the result of that one, but we will mention it.
A little disappointing, and yeah. Okay. And then also, let me see. Did soccer do anything this week?
No, we've covered from A to Z, but I don't
think
so.
Softball, I think, is started.
Softball's coming soon, as is baseball.
Looked like there was people today in the stadium over there. Anyway, let's get going with, I guess we have breaking news, kind of breaking as in today. Tristan Payton, who was the number 14 wide receiver in the nation, committed to UCF today, off of a commitment from Florida, and then I believe a commitment to Kentucky at one point. So he is now a Knight. He's committed to be a Knight. We'll see what happens on the 4th, February 4th.
If Twitter is to be believed, he is quoted as saying on his Twitter feed, "I'm blessed to say that I've committed to the University of Central Florida." So any other bouncing that he's done, he seems to have settled in on the Knights.
Yeah, I hope so. And he also mentioned in there as well, a dream come true, always keep the faith, and the man above will watch how it plays out. That's cool. Hopefully the man above gives us some other good players. We got Darren Wilson also from Greenville, Texas. He's another wide receiver. He's not as highly touted, not a 4-star like Tristan Payton was, but he should be as well good.
Now, on his Twitter feed, he writes, "Had to choose the conference champions." I like that, as one of George O'Leary's stated goals every year is to win the American Athletic Conference. Wilson also put out on Twitter, "Wide receiver you, charge on, go Knights, UCF." So it seems like he's committed.
Yeah, so that's good. We needed some guys like this because, we're going to talk, of course, to J.J. Wharton later on.
There we go,
but,
number 3.
By the way, this is episode number 27 because I never got that out, and I normally always get that out. Yeah.
For those of you playing the at-home game.
Yeah.
Episode
For those 27. Of you that are scoring at home.
Episode 27.
Episode number 27. Every single one of these is a milestone, I believe.
All done in one take.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, I think it's about time for us to go into our interview with Ryan Bass. We're going to talk quite a bit about recruiting here, and I believe now is the time to do that. So here's our interview with Ryan Bass. All right, I am here with, on the phone, Bright House Network sports anchor and Knights 247 publisher, Ryan Bass. So, Ryan, not everybody knows who you are. I know that a lot of people do, but go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
All right. Well, great. And thank you guys so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And my name is obviously Ryan Bass. I'm a sports anchor and reporter, a play-by-play broadcaster for Bright House Sports Network in Tampa. And I've been in the business for about 5 years. Graduated UCF, class of 2011. When I was at UCF, I was sports editor for the newspaper for 2 years. I hosted my own radio show, The Sports Reporter Ryan Bass, for 4 years when I was there. So I've been doing media for a while. Night 247, which is part of the 247 Sports Network, covering recruiting. I've been doing that for about a year and a half. I started the site in August of 2013, and proud to say that it's grown dramatically over the last year and a half. So that's kind of a little bit about me, but yeah, I've been doing this for a while. I've been covering the Knights for about 7 years now, and loving every minute of it. I've gotten to see everything from the first bowl win all the way to the first being the youngest team in BCS history to win a BCS bowl. So it's been a great ride covering the Knights, and I love doing it, and I'm glad to join you guys on the show today. Awesome,
thank you. We're glad to have you. So this year, going into recruiting, it's getting ready to be over here in a couple of weeks, but what's it looking like? I mean, are the Knights doing a good job recruiting this year?
Isn't that the golden question? I mean, that's kind of the question that everyone asks me. I mean, it depends on who you ask, to be honest. I mean, UCF's recruiting, when you look at it from an outsider's perspective, they're not going to be at the top of the recruiting rankings. They're not going to be a top 10, a top 20 class. And part of the reason why is they just can't recruit on the level of an Alabama or a Florida State or a Tennessee, or a USC, a Texas. They're just not at that level yet. And it's no disrespect to them. It's just not what they do. They don't focus on 5-star guys and 4-star guys. They focus on film. That's what UCF coaches focus on. They look at a kid's huddle film, they look at a kid's tape, they plug it in, and they see if they like it, if it fits the system, if they're an athlete, what they can mold and build them into. That's what UCF does well. It's really developing players, and you've seen that with guys like Blake Bortles, and Brandon Alexander, and Rennell Hall, and the list goes on and on and on. Ja Reed. You can continue to go on. Bruce Miller, guys that have played in the NFL that have been projects for UCF that came here very under-recruited and yet have turned into NFL mainstays. So that is what UCF does well. So to grade this year's class, it's hard to do when you look at it on the surface. But I think they've done a great job. Last year they capitalized very nicely in the month of January and for the class of 2014 after winning the Fiesta Bowl. And this year they're doing a great job of bringing in talent that I think can compete and play right away. George O'Leary had never been really a guy in the past that had liked to play freshmen, but the last couple of years he's done that, and you see guys getting on the field earlier than they have in his previous years with UCF. So I think this year, when you look at it from a standpoint of where they're at right now, they have about, as of the middle of January, they have about 5 or 6 spots left to fill for this class, and they've got the big official visit weekend coming up until February 4th gets here, which is signing day. So I think right now they're doing a good job in their class. They have to hold on to the guys that they have because, as happens in the month of January, the bigger Power 5 schools try to come poach UCF's recruiting class. So if they can hold on to their guys and maybe flip a couple of guys from other programs, I think you can consider this a win and a thumbs up for UCF in the class of 2015.
2 quick questions for you. First, how do you view UCF in comparison to our American Athletic Conference rivals? And the second question, how have the recent coaching changes, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, impacted positively or negatively the recruiting process?
Well, I think when you compare UCF to their counterparts in the American Conference, I think the biggest rivals, right now, when you look at it, have to be USF and Cincinnati. And those are the two that they're battling with for the top ranked class, at least according to 247 Sports in the team recruiting rankings. So I think those are their main primary rivals, at least on the recruiting scene, is USF and Cincinnati. And USF has done a great job of bringing in talent. I think they're going to be a bowl team this year. And Cincinnati continues to do well in finding that Florida talent that other schools may not necessarily get for. They pass over, they look over. So I think those are the 2 biggest rivals for UCF in the conference. As far as coaching changes are concerned, when you look at that, I think that impacted immediately. When Kirk Callahan left, I think was arguably UCF's best recruiter, and getting out there, getting in the face of guys, and convincing guys why they should come to UCF. And that's no knock on any of the other guys on UCF staff. I think they have a fantastic group of guys, Alan Milgrid, Sean Beckton, Brent Key, Lorenzo Constantine, just to name a few, Danny Barrett, guys initially, I think it was a hit for UCF to lose a guy like Kirk Callahan, who had done such a phenomenal job on the trail for them for years. But I think they did a great job in bringing in guys like Andrew Thacker and Travis Fisher, and Coach Kennedy promoting into the tight ends coach, all young guys who can come in right away and make an impact and really relate to these recruits. So I think initially it hurt a little bit, but I think UCF done a nice job of cleaning up ever since the new coaches were hired.
Yeah, I want to ask you a couple questions about the individual recruits now, because I know that you've studied those guys quite a bit. Who would you consider to be the top performing player or the top player in this recruiting season for UCF?
Top guy right now, looking at their board, I would say would have to be the first guy that got committed to his class, which is Cameron Stewart. And I did an interview with Cameron yesterday, and he told me he's 100% committed to UCF. He's a 6'3", I want to say 180-pound receiver from Snellville, Georgia. This is a kid who I think can come in right away and play as a freshman at the wide receiver position, which is a huge position I need for UCF. So I think Cameron Stewart can come in. That was a big lockdown for UCF to get that kid to commit, because he is vastly underrated out of the state of Georgia. And I think him with his size and speed, he'll be that deep threat. He'll replace Rashad Perriman's role as Perriman goes on into the NFL draft. So I think Cameron Stewart right now, when you look at him on film, he doesn't look like the biggest and baddest guy out there, but he's fast. He runs great routes. He has fantastic hands, and he can get behind the defense. And I think that's the biggest thing that UCF needs is receivers, especially replacing J.J. Warden, Rashad Perriman, Darnell Hall, Josh Reese, some of the greatest receivers that have played for UCF in the last few years. I think Cameron Stewart can come in immediately as a freshman and play, because he's got the skill set, and he's only going to get bigger and better once he gets on campus.
Yeah, we do have to replace a ton of guys in wide receiver. I mean, wow. They've even said that Pete DeNovo now is going to be a wide receiver, so that's a good position for a quarterback to switch to if he's a mobile guy and can run. But it's smart because the quarterbacks know all the routes and things, so if he can switch to that would be great.
UCF has done that in the past, too, so it's not something new. They moved Michael Greco, who was a quarterback, to safety. They moved Rob Calabrese, who was the quarterback, to wide receiver, and they moved Jeff Godfrey, who won them the Liberty Bowl, to wide receiver. So it's something that they've done in the past and got doing. And I spoke with Pete DeNovo, and he said that he's very excited to move into that role, and he'll do anything to help the team. And that's exactly what you want to hear out of a guy who's moving and really swallowing his pride to move to a position to help this team. So I think it's a good move by UCF and something they've had success with in the past.
Well, you mentioned earlier that South Florida SFU has poached, or we're competing with them for top rankings. Have they poached anybody in particular that you're aware of? Is that the sort of head-to-head, or do they have so many needs that they're having to recruit so many players, and that's why they may be inching up on us in the rankings?
Every team has needs, and every team has areas you want to fill. So I think in this recruiting, here's how it goes. UCF is so good, and their coaching staff is so unbelievably good at identifying talent immediately. When they're not known, when they're not 5 or 4 stars. For example, Chris Williamson, who UCF was recruiting very hard out of Gainesville, Georgia. They wanted him, and they were one of his first big offers that he got. Now he went from being unranked to a 3-star cornerback, and now he's a 4-star bordering 5-star after all these big name programs have now come and tried to swoop in there. So that's an example of how UCF just identifies talent he's in before, and all these other big programs, they're worried about the 4- and 5-star guys, and they're not looking for the guys that UCF are looking for. But then come the month of January, after the recruiting day, or after the dead period, when the stretch to signing day comes, all these big programs start going, wow, that guy's good, watching his film, and that's when they start coming in here to try to recruit UCF, especially when they need to fill positions of need. So for UCF, around this time of year, it's always hold on to what you got and hope they don't steal them away, and I think they've done a good job the last couple of years of doing that.
How busy will you be in the countdown to signing day? What's it like to be you during this part of the season?
I think if you ask myself, Brandon Helwig, who does a great job with UCFSports.com, or you ask really anybody that covers recruiting, I mean, this is part of my language. This is hell week. It's a crazy time of year. I mean, when you put the calendar to January, I mean, it is really truly the race to signing day. I mean, my phone is dead pretty much by noon every day. I mean, just following tweets and following kids on Twitter, and I've got sources, all throughout the industry that I've talked to, on different coaching staffs across the country, whether it be high school and college, that I'm trying to get information from. And it's everybody's phones blowing up. Kids' phones are blowing up this time of year. I'm working, not just with Red Hat Sports Network all day long, but, trying to put in some work throughout the day with the 247 Sports. So it's a long process. It's long days. It's long nights. And let's put it this way, guys. I'm really looking forward to February 5th because I got a feeling that I'm going to take that day and really just turn my phone off and enjoy the quiet peace of company.
Absolutely. I can totally understand that. So is there anybody out of this commit class that you really feel is like, a sleeper and people just don't know what's there yet and that's really going to come out and excite people and do a really good job?
There's a couple of guys. I think first and foremost, the one guy that stands out to me is Tyler Hoodnick, the guy that just committed to UCF this past weekend from Pennsylvania. This guy's got a mean streak, and you watch him on film, and he just bowls over everybody. So I think he could really be a guy that can come in and kind of like Jimmy Dickey did this year as a freshman from Peachtree, Georgia. Last year, he can come in and play as a freshman. So I think Tyler Hoodnick can really be one of those surprise gets for UCF. As far as that, I think Monte Taylor's a guy who can also have an impact early, a JUCO defensive end who comes in, was very familiar with Coach Alan Mogridge when Mogridge was on the staff at North Carolina and recruited him there. He went the junior college route, the cut school route, and now is reunited with him at UCF. I think he can come in and make a big impact. Tosh McGowan, another guy I like. He enrolled early, running back from Hollandale, Florida. Really good physical running back, and UCF's got so many young, good running backs. I think Tosh can really come in and maybe fight for playing time. So, and this staff's not done yet. There's a lot of guys that could potentially turn into big-name stars. Luke Byers, who's our top-rated recruit right now at Lake Wales High School, is possibly going to be that center of the future, replacing Julie Grant after next year. So there's a lot of guys that can really come in and maybe surprise some people. But UCF's got some more surprises up their sleeves. I don't think they're done yet with this class. They got a lot more to go.
All righty, we will try to talk to you again after the National Signing Day and see how this all worked out. Again, where can people find you during the week and on TV and the internet and everything else?
Hopefully they can find me. I try to put myself in as many places as possible, but Bright House Sports Network, Channel 47, HD 1147 in Tampa Bay and Orlando. If you have Bright House cable, of course, it's exclusive to Bright House Network customers. You can find me there. I host a show, Recruiting Central, Tuesdays and Fridays. I'm our main play-by-play guy, so any games you see, play-by-play-wise, I'm usually calling on our channel, at least on the Tampa Bay side, not so much in the Central Florida area. Also on Makes247.com, which, of course, is part of the 247 Sports Network. You can log on there and find all the work that we do. We're running a free trial right now, or not necessarily a free trial, but buy 1 month, get 2 additional for free. So for just $10, you can get 3 months of membership to Nights 247. So I suggest you guys out there, if you're following the lead up to signing day, to kind of get in there and get all the scoop before the class comes together. It's an exciting time, and of course on Twitter, @RY_Bass. So I appreciate you guys so much for having me on the show. You guys do a phenomenal job. I respect what you guys do. I ran a radio show back in college for 2 hours every week, and I knew how difficult it was. So you guys continue to do a great job, and I'm a big fan of the show, and I'm glad you guys are a part of the 247 Sports Network and fans of Nights 247. So thanks so much, guys, for having me on.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the kind words, and we are very grateful for you joining us today. And like I said, we will have you back later on. Thank you very, very much.
All right, sounds good, guys. Talk to you then.
All right, so that was our interview with Ryan Bass. What did you get from that, Trace?
I got that he's a busy guy as the countdown to signing day, but that's his bread and butter this time of year. And as these announcements of Knights, or future Knights saying that they're going to be signing and announcing that on Twitter, you're hoping that means good things for UCF on February 4th.
Speaking of signing with the Knights, and we already talked about this a little bit, but we have a question from Kurt this week. So let me play something I haven't played in a little while, and we'll do a Kurt's question. All right, Knight fans, welcome to this episode of Kurt's Questions, featuring Kurt Searcy. All right, Kurt's question this week is, what does Tristan Payton's commitment mean to the class? And discuss him choosing UCF over UF. Number one, I think he chose a better school.
Go Knights.
Absolutely.
Got to agree with you on that one.
Yeah. So, number two, we do not get a lot of 4-stars. We had Kyle Gibson last year. I think we already talked about that a little bit. And, we need to get more 4-stars. UF gets quite a few 4-stars. In fact, I think you talked at one point about them having them kind of lined up.
Well, as an SEC school, they should. However, they have a new coach, still some uncertainty at quarterback, and as we've been talking about over the past several weeks, we have a few vacancy signs out at the wide receiver position, and this is an opportunity for a talented player to come in, prove his wares on the field, and then go the way of the NFL draft, as Brashad Perriman has done, following in the footsteps of Brandon Marshall and others. So, wide receiver this is good for UCF, and it comes at a very opportune time for us.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got lots of space there, like you said, and we need to fill those shoes. We need guys that can come in and maybe not be those players that were coached up from 2-star and lower. JJ gets into that later when we're going to talk to him. He gets into talking about where he was recruited.
That's J.J. Wharton on the Knightline Podcast.
And he wasn't recruited, actually. He was a walk-on originally.
Boy, we forget that, don't we?
I know, yeah.
Wow.
Who could ever think that J.J. Wharton was a walk-on? But he did such a great job for us. His brother, actually, I believe, is going to UF. I didn't talk to him about that because I was talking about him, not his brother. But I believe that his brother is actually a UF commitment anyway this year. So we will see what happens with that. I think now is the perfect time for us to play our interview with J.J. Wharton. All right, joining me now on the Knightline Podcast, number 9, J.J. Wharton. J.J., how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm just up in Alabama. Going to support Clayton, TP, and Speedy at the Senior Bowl.
How's the knee going? You injured your knee in one of the games last year and couldn't play the last couple games, but we know that you're working hard to get that going. How's that going?
It's going real well. Like we made the decision to go up to Pensacola and do my surgery with Dr. Andrews in December, and then I moved back up to Pensacola a couple weeks back. I've been rehabbing with him and his team. So it's been good. I'm doing well. I'm up and moving around much better. Swelling's gone. So they're really excited about how far along I've come in so fast in such a short time.
How is that going to affect trying to get into the NFL this year?
I'm sure it took a pretty big hit towards my draft stock. But I mean, everyone I've talked to has said that I tell them I'm going to have a great opportunity. So I mean, whether I get drafted or not, I'm still going to go for it. And hopefully I'll get drafted and I can start right away with the team's doctors and see where I'm at. But I'll be back for pro day and I'll be down there and I'll do like the measurements and the interview process. But we'll see how far along I come in time to see if I can really do any of the running and activities that they do on pro day. So we'll see.
Now, did you totally tore your ACL? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I completely tore my ACL, and there's very minimal damage anywhere else, if any at all.
So take us through a little bit of that play where you got hurt. Did you know that it was serious right away?
I knew something was wrong when I made a cut. I felt like a buckle and felt like I dislocated my knee. It just everything kind of shifted around. But I had a similar injury the year before, and the doctors gave me the same news on the sideline in the locker room. So, and I was just a minor sprain last year. So that's what was kind of like my mindset. So when Jacoby made that interception, I kind of grabbed my helmet and ran back on the field. I was able to go through the next 2 drives, and then after I scored my touchdown, and I had asked to put the brace on, I came to the sideline. They were already up by so much. The coach was going to take me out regardless to kind of save me because I was already hurt. So he didn't want me to further hurt myself because they also thought that I could play in the rest of the game, the remaining season. And then at halftime, coach took my helmet and said I was done for the game. And I got my MRI on Monday, and I found out on Tuesday.
Oh, that's a bummer. We definitely missed you. I actually was sitting at the bowl game in the same section you were, and I at one point had said, "Hey, JJ," so I'm sure a lot of people were bugging you and stuff down there. It was cool that you were able to be at the rest of the games and support, everybody. What did you think of the bowl game down there in St. Petersburg?
It was definitely different, being around the fans and watching the game from the stands. But you guys never bugged me, man. You guys all have shown so much support, and I really appreciate everything that's come my way, the high spirits and everything like that. So it really doesn't go unnoticed. I see it all, and I try to appreciate as much as I can. But yeah, it was definitely different watching from home on TV when they were at East Carolina, and then when we went to the bowl game, I made the decision to go up there, and I was with Joey Grant and his family in the stands, and I got to meet and talk with a lot of people. But the game itself was hard to watch because I knew I wanted to be out there and help as much as I could. But there was nothing I could do. So after the game, I just kind of talked to my teammates, trying to keep them all up. So I knew it was the seniors' last day, so try to make the most out of it.
Yeah, it definitely didn't turn out the way any of us wanted to, obviously, but I think everybody played, as hard as they could. Speaking of playing as hard as they could, I talk about you a lot on this show because you were definitely one of the people that go out there every single down and play with everything that you have, and I think that that's what made you such a great player and makes you such a great player. I'm not going to say made because you're still a great player and you will be a great player in the NFL, and I know that. What does it take to do that every time? I mean, what's your mindset when you step on the field? What goes through JJ's head?
It's got to start from when I was playing in high school. That I didn't want to come off the field because I knew I wanted to play college football. So I try and make the most out of every situation. So I played offense, I played defense, I played every special teams. I was the kicker, punter. I did punt return, kickoff return. So I was. If I could have held in high school, I would have held too, but nobody would have kicked it. But no, when I got to college, I knew I wanted to help in the punt return game and anywhere else in special teams that I could. So I knew I was a pretty decent holder. But I didn't have to be a holder. I just figured, why not? If I'm getting good at it, it's just something that can help me out in the NFL as well. But my competitiveness just wants me to always be on the field because I want to make an impact on the game as much as possible. So yeah, I guess just being around the athletes and the competitiveness that I was in Miami growing up just makes me always want to be on the field and not be in the spotlight, but be around it and contribute to whoever is in the spotlight and trying to help them. In high school, one of my receivers coach, Coach Hudson, he had a lot of great receivers come from South Bay. You had Kerry Reed, a bunch of other guys that have gone through and played in college and in the NFL, and all of his sons have played in the NFL. So when I heard from him telling that I have a great deal of talent and that he believes I can play in the NFL and have a great career in college, I kind of took it upon myself to not let him down because he was always there for me and he always trusted me with being in the game and being the guy at the moment that everyone needed to make a big play. So he was always there for me, taught me all the basics and everything I know about the game today. And then I guess Coach Beck just came in and took over completely where Coach Hutt left off. And even when I first got to UCF, Coach Beck was a defensive backs coach, and Coach Kelly was here. And when we were doing one-on-ones in practice, Coach Beck would, if I'd run my route, Coach Beck would stop and just kind of pull me to the side and kind of give me tips and hints on how to attack the defender and what to do. So he was, even as a defensive back coach, he always kind of helped me out on the field and off the field. And then when he was one of our receiver coaches, between him and Coach Hutt are probably my two most influential coaches I've ever had, and I love them both. What
do you think about Coach Key getting the offensive coordinator job coming up this year?
I think we all kind of saw it coming. Towards this season, Coach Key went up into the box and started helping out with the play calls and stuff like that. So I think it's a great move for UCF. He's a great coach, and the players respect him as long as the rest of the staff. I feel like he's going to do a great job.
All righty. So what was your favorite moment as a Knight?
I've had this question before in an interview, and I got to say the same thing. A lot of people expect me to say the day that against Temple the catch, but that's definitely one of my most memorable. But I think my favorite moment was when the clock hit 0 in the Fiesta Bowl, because it was such an emotional season leading up to it, and the way that it ended, and everyone counted us out against Baylor. Just the feeling of winning that game against all odds, it's just something that can't be matched.
that year will always go down. And of course, I wasn't going to mention the catch, but because I know that everybody's asked you about that. So, all right. So I'm going to do it, I guess. I will ask you. So what was it like? What was the feeling? Were you surprised when you caught that ball against Temple on the tips of your fingers?
I mean, the play kind of broke down from the beginning. So, like, we were running our route, and as soon as I got to, like, my breaking point, I cut across the field. I saw Blake scrambling already. So I was the guy that was supposed to go take my route deeper if he did scramble. So I started running. I saw Blake make eye contact with me, and he went to go throw it, and I realized he didn't. And I looked up, and there's a defensive back right there, so I had to go even higher to get behind him. And then luckily Blake was able to hold the ball long enough and get rid of it right in time before he got hit. And I just did my best to try and get under it, and luckily I got a hand on it, and somehow it stuck. And when I came up with it, it was just a rush of emotion, shock that it kind of was hard to believe until my teammates got over there to me. I know Storm Johnson was one of the first ones there. Josh Reese was one of the first ones there. It just kind of sunk in through the rest of the game. Like after the game, I mean, it was at the end of the game, but I mean, after the game, we were like flying back and stuff. And the TVs on the plane are kind of showing it, and it's kind of like hard to believe that, wow, it actually happened. But I mean, everyone I've talked to has been so amazed by it, and I just, to this day, it's still an amazing feeling.
Yeah, you talked as a kid and stuff, practicing catches like that in the backyard, and I guess it paid off, huh?
Yeah, just playing in the backyard and diving into the pool and catching stuff with one hand. My brothers and stuff, and I know me and Perriman, like a warm-up, some doing our pat and goes, always doing kind of crazy one-handed catches and stuff like that. And so, I mean, it's just kind of stuff like that you kind of play around, but you don't really realize that stuff like that can happen in the game. And so, I mean, just a little practice that you kind of do for it may be what helps you out in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of Perriman, signing day is coming up, and the Knights fans are a little worried about replacing you and Brashad and Josh and Rennell. What do you think is left there at the wide receiver position at UCF right now? Is there some guys that you think that'll really come on this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're leaving behind Taylor Odom, and Trylko is the freshman that came in last year who made a lot of heads turn on scout team and on one-on-ones when he was working out with us. So, I mean, we definitely have a good group of receivers still back there, and even if you leave somebody that's never played receiver with Coach Beck, he's going to turn into something spectacular. So I know we all trust Taylor. He's made great contributions the past couple of years in practice and in one-on-ones and in camp. He's really shown up and grown a lot, and I think Trylko's going to be able to do the same.
I guess Pete DeNovo is also going to be a receiver, and in an article that was written just recently about him stepping over into the receiver position, I didn't know if you knew that, but he was compared in body size and shape to you. What's he going to be like as a receiver?
I know he's a tremendous athlete, and when he ran with the ball at the quarterback position, he was always fun to watch. So I mean, I don't know how his hands are, but if he can get his hands on the ball, I'm sure he's gonna be real good with it in the open field. If he can turn up and get north and south. But I mean, I know he's a good athlete, but I think he'll transition well, kind of like Jeff Godfrey did, and he's gonna be I think he'll be a big help this year.
Yeah, it seems like kind of a natural thing for a quarterback if they're athletic enough to be able to play that wide receiver position because they already know the routes, they know where they're supposed to be. It's just the amount of, I guess, doing it. So I think that's kind of cool that he's getting that opportunity. I felt bad for him, at the middle of that Penn State game. But what was it like to go to Ireland and be able to experience that at the beginning of the season?
It was definitely something new for me. I'd only been out of the country once. I was on a cruise, so I don't think it really counts. But to go out and experience a brand new country and a different culture and be with my friends, and it was definitely an experience I'll never forget and that I'll treasure forever. I wish the outcome would have been a little different. We scored with a little bit too much time left on the clock, and there's definitely times when we wish we could go back and change something. But I mean, it is what it is. It was definitely a trip that I'll never forget and that I had a lot of fun on.
Well, I'm sure you'll get many more opportunities to do that kind of stuff after some years in the NFL for sure. Since recruiting, again, is almost over for the year coming up, there's a lot of talk about how the coaching staff at UCF is good at taking kids that are not 4 and 5 stars but ranked lower and making them great, productive players. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I know that I came in as a recruit with no stars and no offers, and Coach O'Leary took a chance with me. And, I mean, I can speak for the rest of them that are out there that are getting unnoticed and under the radar. that it just puts a chip on our shoulder and makes us want to work even harder. So when like an offers and all these scholarships are just being handed out to these guys because of a rating, it definitely makes us work a little bit harder, and makes us want to prove that we're just as good, if not better, than those guys. So I think that's something that we have as an advantage if you're going to take anything out of that type of scenario. But I mean, I'm pretty sure that Clayton came in as maybe a 1 or 2 star athlete. I don't think BA came in as a big recruit either. I think pretty sure you can play like D end in high school. And came in, switched over, and played a tremendous role for us in the defensive back. There's a lot of guys out there that don't get the recognition that they deserve. As long as they keep grinding and they focus on what they want to get done, then somebody will find them. Yeah,
there's a lot of guys or a lot of people, a lot of fans that don't really understand the recruiting process. Also don't understand that just because someone maybe was under the radar and didn't have the 4 and 5 people complain all the time. I hear it that, UCF never gets any 4 or 5 star guys, but they can take guys like you that were under the radar and see something in them. Maybe it's the will and maybe it's the look in their eye. I don't know. But they can see that there's something there, and obviously they made a good choice with you, a great choice. All right, well, thank you so much, JJ. You are one of the greatest players in UCF history, and you will greatly be missed.
I was just going to say that through my career, I've made such great friends and so many great memories, and that I'm just glad that I could be a part of UCF and one of the greatest seasons it's ever had, and the past couple of seasons it's ever had. I know a lot of people say that I'm a great receiver and everything like that, but I can't take the credit for it unless I give credit to where it's due, where the offensive line and like Blake and making plays before we get the ball, and then also with our coaching staff giving us the opportunity to go out there and make big plays. And Coach O'Leary really is a great coach, along with the rest of the staff, and Coach Beck will always be in my heart forever.
Right on. Well, you will always be in our heart forever, for sure. We will follow you. Hopefully, I was just thinking about this, maybe you can get talking a little bit with Blake. The Jacksonville Jaguars, I think, need some receivers, and that would be pretty awesome. Maybe we can have another catch or the rest of the catches as well, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind going back and playing with Blake. Me and him had something special, and I think if we got a chance to do it again, I feel like we'd pick up right where we left off.
Awesome. Yeah, man, we got to make that happen somehow. Talk to your agent or whoever, make that happen. That would be absolutely awesome. All right.
Yeah, it would.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I greatly appreciate it. And, everybody's gonna be following you, seeing what's going to happen with the NFL thing. I know that you'll make us all proud and do a great job, and we wish you all the luck in the entire world.
All right, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll make sure to post some pictures and updates on Twitter and Instagram for everyone to kind of see how far along I'm coming, because I know a lot of people are interested. So I'll do that for the fans, because I love the fans. I know that they're all looking out for me. All
righty. Hey, and for the fans that don't know your Twitter handle, would you mind giving that out?
Yeah, it's JJ Wharton. It's the underscore, and it's just 9. So JJ Wharton _9.
Awesome. Thank you so much, JJ. We will hope to talk to you later.
All right, man. Have a good one.
All right, so we'll be following JJ Wharton for sure through the NFL things and all that he's going to do. I'm excited that he said that he was going to be back for the pro day, even though maybe he would not be able to run and do all those other things. So he's making progress, and I was just happy to talk to JJ.
Yeah, I don't know whether we're going to see him get drafted in the NFL draft, but I think he'll get a look from someone, and I think he's got the speed and versatility, return game, and some other skills that he has to contribute somewhere. So I think you'll see him suit up for an NFL team at some point.
Well, like I said to him at the end, we talked a little bit about maybe reunited and, blah, 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 about reuniting with Blake Bortles there in Jacksonville. That's what I would love to see, and Jacksonville would be just the type of team that may take advantage of a guy named J.J. Wharton, because of the different circumstance that maybe he's in.
Can he play offensive line in Jacksonville? Because that would seem to be one of their more pressing needs. But that would be a good fit for him, reuniting with
Did
J.J.
you like my singing there, by the way?
I'm a little surprised by it. And
Okay. Yeah, I am a musician. I like that song.
The things you learn.
Was that Yeah. Was that a Lionel Richie song? I don't know. I can't even remember who it was. But hopefully, like, YouTube and, like, SoundCloud and all that doesn't
You're
get
going to
that
get
little
dinged for you singing about
yeah.
the song.
Well, because it sounded so good. So
they'll be confused with the original.
they would think that it was a professional job. Yeah, right. Okay, so we've got a lot next week as well to talk about. We've still got some recruiting to talk about.
It'll be just a couple of days when we come out on Sunday with a new podcast. We'll just be a couple of days away from signing day. But wait, there's more. You were able to catch up with a legendary UCF name.
Kyle Israel will be joining us by phone for next week's podcast. I was hoping to have it on this time, but
that's just too much content for this week.
It is.
People can't be driving to work and listening to all. They'll never get out of their car. They'll never make their destination. There's just too much good stuff here.
Right. So
self-promoting 101.
Yep. Next week we will be talking to Kyle Israel. So make sure you tune in, download, or whatever you do to listen to us. We appreciate it.
I can tell you a couple of ways that you could do just what you were alluding to right there. We do promote what's coming up on the Facebook page. We're also on Twitter. You are what is it called? What'd you call it the last week? Twitter Storm.
Twitter Storm.
You're Twitter storming during basketball games. We're on YouTube, SoundCloud, very popular. A lot of listens to us on SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn. People, of course, going to UCFKnightlinePodcast.com. We heard Kurt's question earlier, so some people are texting you questions. You can leave a question for us at 407-205-7427. And as my friend Ken asked me last week, could you repeat it twice? Because he needed to rewind to hear me say it again. So
you don't have to rewind a podcast, though,
or whatever you do.
Digital.
You click back. But for you, Ken, that's 407-205-7427. Of course, I mentioned this to him, and has he called in with a question yet, since he complained to me about this?
No one has.
Leave us a question or comment, and we would love to include you in a future edition of the Knightline Podcast.
I think I'm going to start drinking while we do this. It might be a little bit more entertaining. And I have not been drinking tonight. I'm just a little slap happy. That's why I was singing. Anyway.
Segue, slap happy, UCF Knights basketball.
Boy, aren't we comedians today?
Yeah, we're a little loose.
Lord have mercy. Yeah, well, the UCF Knights played the Cincinnati Bearcats and basically got eaten alive today by the Bearcats. Is there actually such thing as a Bearcat?
You know, that's interesting.
There is.
You should bring that up. We were, my friend and I were walking in, John and I were walking in, and I passed a Cincinnati fan. I said, can I ask you a quick question? Because John and I were walking in and saying, is a Bearcat like a Seahawk? Is it a real thing? And so I asked the Cincinnati fan, hey, a quick question for you. And he goes, yeah. I go, is a Bearcat a real thing? And he gets all defensive. He goes, it's more real than a knight. And I'm like, whoa.
Really?
This is what he said to me.
More real than a knight.
And I didn't want to get into a whole thing that there are such things.
He missed that entire, whatever century that it was in, where all the knights were fighting each other, and
But I didn't know whether it was a real thing. I mean, a Seahawk is not a real bird.
I have discussed this with my family and the younger members of my family a couple times, and yes, there is such thing as a Bearcat. I think is referred to as well as some kind of another animal as well. There's another name for it or something.
But I just meant it as a sincere question because I wasn't sure if it was a real thing, and he got all upset about it. So, but he did answer that he said it was a real thing after he could tell I wasn't being, a jerk about it. I was sincerely curious. Is a knight a real thing? I mean, okay, yeah, we can debate that one. How long you want to debate that one?
Yeah, well, yes. In fact, yes, there are Bearcats. Wikipedia says. I know we're going way off of what we're doing here, but I can't say the actual. I don't know how they would be called Bearcats in Cincinnati because this is like an Asian animal in Southeast Asia, and I can't say the name of it. Binturong. Binturong
sounds good to me.
Yeah. So whatever. Anyway, we got eaten alive by them. The Knights lost 46-56 in that. And that's, it really was not as close as that sounds.
Well, except it was yet another game that goes down to the last couple of moments. I mean, in fairness to UCF, that was 50-46. B.J. Taylor had gone out in the first half, concussed, as it were, by one of his own players, as it turns out.
Yeah, I guess Justin McBride came down with the elbow on top of his head or something and kind of knocked him out of the game.
I can't imagine all 330 pounds of Justin McBride elbowing me in the face, but that's what happened to B.J. Taylor.
It'll give you a concussion. That's what it'll do.
We were close. It's 50-46, but 3 straight trips down to the bucket, and we come away with nothing. And you go back a couple of days, and we lose 67-60 to the defending national champions at UConn. That's a game that was fairly close, despite the fact that we were outscored 19-2 in one stretch in that UConn game. This is another game there was like an 11-0 run. It was like a 15-5 into the break where we fall apart again. I'm just frustrated as a fan, though, and I see from comments on message boards at UCFsports.com and some other sites that folks are getting increasingly frustrated. Glass half full, we played right to the end. Glass half empty, I think you have some better coaching decisions, some better play calling. You don't hold the ball and call your play until 10 seconds left on the shot clock, and maybe Coach Jones puts the team in a better position to win, and we win a close game. I'm just not on the Donnie Jones bandwagon, as you've heard me say for the last couple of weeks that I've been with you.
And I am to a certain point, but the bandwagon is starting to lean, and I'm about to fall off, to be honest with you. I like Donnie Jones as a person, but liking someone as a person does not make them a good coach.
You had opportunity to talk with him because you were in the post-game press conference.
I did talk with him
One of the
today.
things that frustrates me is take some ownership as a coach for some coaching decisions that you made.
One of the things that he does constantly is we're not going to make excuses, and then he says that all the time. That's one of his I'm not going to make excuses, and then he makes an excuse, and then today he followed it up by not making excuses. And then made another excuse.
So don't say that, but also say what mistakes did coaches play in that, or where was the play call? You remember that game where we lost narrowly to Tulsa, and it was a play was called, and Daquan Walker didn't execute the play as it was called. Well, we were talking in the stands today that Coach Jones often says the players don't call the plays don't execute the plays that were called. Well, that's coaching. Why are they not taking the coaching?
Right, and today the excuse was that B.J. Taylor wasn't in the game. Okay, I have sound here. I'll let you hear what Donnie Jones said post the Cincinnati loss.
Obviously, a hard-fought game tonight here by our team. I was happy with how we competed. I thought the one thing I've been happy with this team, especially the last 2 games, is we put ourselves in a position down the stretch here to have a chance against 2 very good programs. And I think the thing that we got to do is take that next step here right now was to be able to finish. And that's always the beauty of this when you're trying to win in conference play is, one, you got to be able to compete at the level of who you play against, and you got to be in that position. And, hey, it's a 2-possession game, coming down the stretch with a minute and a half to go, exactly where you want to be. And obviously we took some tough shots and made some tough plays, just some mental breakdowns for our team, which we got to continue to get better at. And we talk about those things, and these kids are coachable, but sometimes get caught up in emotion and try to do a little too much. But I'm really happy with some of the efforts here tonight. Obviously, Casey Wilson, we've been really stressing that effort that we got from him tonight. That's what we've been looking for, and he continues, I think, each game to make strides. I think that we had to play a lot of minutes. We only have 4 scholarship guards, and one of them was in the locker room for most of the game, and B.J. Taylor, which we're still, waiting to see what the issue will be for him. But obviously took a hard hit, and it was a crazy play there. I guess Justin McBride got him with an elbow and a rebound. And so he's having concussion symptoms at this point, and he wasn't able to be able to come back in and play. So we set him out for precautionary reasons and need to watch him here for a couple days, and hopefully, he recovers from that quickly. And obviously Adonis, he took a tough fall in the game, and we got to watch him and probably have to get an MRI on his knee here to make sure he's all right, because now after the game's over, obviously you get sore. And so, but he came back in, I thought, played with some toughness, had some good looks, didn't go down. We had 3 or 4 open shots there to turn the corner down the stretch. That's all you can ask for, but they needed to go down for us. But they didn't, and Cincinnati's a good basketball team. There's a reason they're top 5 defensively in the country with the way they play. It's a hard thing to create atmosphere-wise in your practices for young guys to be able to handle that. You got to make plays sometimes, and it's hard to run plays. And tonight we started figuring that out a little bit down the stretch, but just wasn't able to hold on.
And with that loss, UCF falls to 9-10 overall. Prediction, Andrew, this will be the last time going into this game that UCF is at 500. We won't be back to 500. We won't be over 500. Next home game, we have Temple at UCF at the CFE Arena on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. I don't think we get back to 500 or above 500.
You don't think that we're going to be able to beat Temple?
No, we weren't able to beat them there. And I think there will be some excuse for why we lose by 6 with the last couple of minutes of the game. So I don't expect a win on Wednesday versus Temple.
I think that some miracle is going to happen. Donnie Jones is going to say the magic words to the players. Finally, whatever it is that he has to say, and McBride is going to come out and score like 80.
You know what's interesting about McBride, by the way, is he
either
either scores 2 points
guys.
Or he scores 30 points.
Yeah,
it's not a lot in between with him.
Listen, we can mess with the coach, but I don't like to dog players here. So we're not at all dogging Justin McBride. I love all those guys, seriously. I think that they're great guys. They play really hard. That's not what we're doing. We're having a little bit of fun. So
well, it remains to be seen, obviously, with a concussion issue for B.J. Taylor, whether he even plays Wednesday. Adonis Enriquez was banged up as well and was really never the same in the game the rest of the way. So the Knights are a tad gimpy going into that Wednesday tilt with Temple. On a positive, in hoops, the women's basketball team won at SMU today, which was a nice recovery from a rather big shellacking at home the other day to UConn.
I think they were down in that game at one point as well today, so they were able to come back and do that. That's great. Also, in UCF sports news, baseball has had their first few practices, and they have their first games coming up here pretty soon. I think the 13th of February will be the first game in baseball, and we will be covering that.
Softball's coming up as well, and a big announcement, and we'll have more about this as it gets closer, that UCF announced its class for the Athletic Hall of Fame. A softball player, Stephanie Best, baseball, football player, Dee Brown, a guy you may have heard of, Asante Samuel, who suited up in the NFL, and the 1978 national champion volleyball team. So some well-deserved honors coming for some notable names in UCF sports history coming into the Athletics Hall of Fame.
And the cheerleaders came in second in the national championship. So runner-up position in the national championship, winner being Alabama. And I heard at the competition Alabama had like tons and tons of fans, and we didn't have enough. So I guess we need to start going to cheerleading competitions.
That's not possibly why they lost by narrow percentages, though.
I know.
I would hope
that's
not.
what somebody said.
Before we wrap up with this episode, couple of notes on football. Rennell Hall, Terrence Plummer,
Clayton Geathers
in the Senior Bowl, and Josh Sitton Sunday night in the NFL Pro Bowl.
Episode number 27. This is Andrew Phegley.
This is Trey Trylko.
See ya.
Will never yield. Black and gold shines right through the light. Victory is our cry. B-S-E-T-O-R-Y.